Welcome to Reddit Tea Time. About a month ago, a friend of mine borrowed some money from me. For context, in my country we use cash for 90% of transactions. He said he was getting paid in 2 days, and he would return it then. Sure, he came to my place to get it. On the day he was supposed to come back with it, he said he finished work late. The next morning he said he left for work earlier than usual. It was reason after reason for about 3 days. Then I stopped asking, trusting that he'd come with it. I didn't need it immediately. The next week he stopped responding to my hi messages until I called. Then he said he'd come with the money later that day. He didn't show up. The next day, I called again and he said he would send it to me. I preferred cash, but I just told him to send it. He didn't. When I called him to ask for help with something, my number had been blocked. This was 2.5 weeks ago. 3 days after, he texted me and told me he'd just gotten home from the hospital and he had the money on him. I told him to bring it home or send it over the phone. Nothing until now. My calls are still blocked and he ignores my messages. So yesterday, I went to the police station to ask if there was anything I could do, and they offered to help even though they don't deal with such issues. They called him and asked him to come over. Now he's blowing up my phone and calling me cruel and saying he's been busy with work, that's why he hasn't returned the money. He's saying that I'm horrible for treating him like a thief and there's no way he wouldn't have returned my money. A part of me feels really bad because we were so close before this, but at the same time, I feel he was trying to take advantage of me. So, am I the bonehead? Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. The guy lied to you over and over. He was the one putting a dent in the friendship first. I hope you got your money back. How many clues did you need that he had no intention of paying you back? Not the bonehead for what you finally did, but you're the idiot for letting it go on so long. Not the bonehead. At the point he blocked your number, it was clear who the bonehead was. Not the bonehead. You're treating this guy like a thief because he's acting like a thief. Blocking you, lying to you, breaking promises. Yes, he was absolutely taking advantage of you, and if going to the police was the only way to get your money back, since he clearly had no intention of paying you back, then that's what you had to do. I have a 20-year-old son, Drew, that I had with a girlfriend. If I could have kept Drew and not his mom, then I'd do that. She's basically a broke artist. I agreed to a generous arrangement that allowed her to stay in a nice part of town, but my financial help would end once Drew hit 19. The point was for her to get her life in order and not to live off my child's support. The day after Drew turned 18, I had my lawyer send her a letter notifying her that my child support payments were ending in 1 year. She freaked out. She's done nothing over the last 13 years. She actually asked me to buy her a house. I told her to F off. Her crazy self could have bought a house with my child's support, but she insisted on renting. She told Drew I was putting her on the street and he got mad. He said, "I'm rich, so why can't I just buy his mom a house?" I said, "Okay. I'll give her your college money. Come back to me in a month and tell me if you want me to help her crazy self out now that you know where the money is coming out of." So now he and his mom are fighting over money. I do feel bad, but they're not bugging me over it. And I don't give a damn where my ex lives. May it be in a mansion or a tent. She can go sell her doll artwork on the street corner. Regarding Drew, oh, I love that kid, but his mom instilled a sense of entitlement in him that was bound to clash with me. I have 2 younger boys to worry about. Edit. At the end of our separation, she had enough to put a down payment on a house and didn't. She liked her rental too much. So I have 0 sympathy for her housing situation. Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. She knew when payments would end. It's not your fault she didn't prepare for that, and you certainly don't owe her anything beyond what you've already given her. It sounds like she's acting entitled to your money, but obviously that's not the case. It's unfortunate your son doesn't see what's really going on, and I fear you will be the bad guy until he one day understands the situation better. Not the bonehead. There was an agreement that payments would end. What the hell was she doing? Not the bonehead. You've set aside money for a college fund. You've done exactly your required financial parenting duties. You've supported him until he turned 19, and also are apparently intending on helping him further his education so he can support himself in the future. You don't owe anything to the mother. I, 34 female, and my wife, 40 also female, obviously have 2 children, twin girls aged 5. They're the best things that ever happened to us. We live next door to a couple, Fumiko and her husband Jiro. They're in their 70s and moved here from Japan to be closer to their son about 20 years ago. Fumiko and Jiro adore the girls. They're so good with them, always making them special foods, coming outside when they see them to say hello, letting them help in their garden, which is more nuisance than help LOL, and much, much more. In return, the girls love them. My wife jokes that they probably like them better than us. One time, my wife had a broken leg that required surgery, and they kept the girls overnight. It was all they talked about for weeks. They call them Granny and Papa J. We're so lucky to have them. My own parents, on the other hand, are not close to us and never will be. They never fully accepted that I married a woman and only begrudgingly came around when the girls were born. I wouldn't say their granddaughters are close with them. They were here this weekend and saw an Omamori charm on one of my girls' backpacks. This is particularly special. Fumiko and Jiro had gone to Japan for a few weeks over the summer and brought them back for protection for the girls. They worry about them in school, given America. My wife and I are agnostic, but we're deeply touched by the gesture. My mom asked what it was, and one of the girls told her proudly and that Granny gave it to her. My dad looked at me and said, "Why do you let them hang out with those insert racial slurs so much?" I pretty much frickin' lost it. Said our neighbors are more like grandparents than they ever will be, didn't allow arguments and kicked them out of my house. My wife said she was proud of me. Today, my mom said she was expecting an apology for breaking her heart, and all I can think about is cutting them off for good. They're the girls' grandparents though, maybe only in name, but still. It feels like a huge step, and a permanent one, and I just don't know. Am I the bonehead for saying what I said? For possibly cutting them off? I could set harsher boundaries maybe. Edit. Already seen a few comments on this, so I just want to explain. Of course, I don't want people who are homophobic racists around my girls. This is the first time I've ever seriously considered cutting them off, and obviously that is emotional no matter the context. Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. Ask yourself if you want these people that are racist and homophobic to influence your children's views of the world. Ask yourself if someone told you they cut off their parents for being racist and homophobic, if you would think that is too harsh or perfectly justified to not let their influence reach their children. Grandparents do not have inherent rights to know grandchildren, and consider if you really think they are good influences on your kids, or if all they do is make you unhappy and you always have to try to undo the damage they bring. Not the bonehead. You reacted appropriately. They were rude to you and your children in your house, not to mention being grossly racist, and hardly accept you and your family. If anybody deserves an apology here, it's you. I fully believe family doesn't have to be blood related. I, 32 female, have been in a relationship with Lily, 34 female, for 12 years, and I've been welcomed into her family. She has 2 sisters, Rose, 33, and Natalie, 25. I have a somewhat distant relationship with Rose, but Nat and I consider each other sisters. Rose's husband, Ben, 35, is an awful person, husband and brother-in-law, and he brags that he could be an awful dad. Until recently, Rose was intending to divorce him, but she's since changed her mind. Nat's wedding is in 2 weeks, and since the divorce is not happening, he is now invited, even though everyone hates him. Their family cares a lot about what will people think. For years, I quietly put up with his behavior, occasionally trying an I feel statement and a polite request not to do something. It never went well, and 2 years ago, he blew up and berated me, screaming, trying to intimidate me into silence and obedience. It was horrible, and it also triggered a past trauma. I'm afraid of him, and he despises me. My in-laws are aware of this. For unrelated reasons, I've been struggling with my mental health to the point where I've been on sick leave for months. I'm more prone to anxiety attacks, cry more easily, lose speech, etc. My in-laws are supportive. Neil and Nat have also told me many times that they'd never let him hurt me and gladly throw him out of any event, etc. Nat went as far as to say she'd protect me from him. But they still insist I attend events with Ben there, lecturing me about how family comes first. I attended 2 events, and to others it looked like they went well, but that was at a great personal cost. Nat's been awfully stressed to the point where she had to take a break from planning last month for fear of a depressive episode. I try to support her in any way I can. I hate to put more on her, but I had to insist that she rearrange the seating. I messaged her to ask if we could talk. She texted Lily instead, so she relayed my message. The reply was terse, saying my feelings were not her problem, listing seating choices that she deems inappropriate and impossible, and saying she couldn't accommodate petty squabbles. Lily replied that threats and intimidation are not petty squabbles. We haven't heard from her since. I feel awful about stressing her out. At the same time, I've reached the limit of how much I can silently suffer through. To spare her, I'd have to put myself through more pain, and I just can't. But I've done it before, and a wedding is a huge deal. I'm angry with myself for hitting this limit now of all times, and I think that so is Nat. Am I the bonehead for insisting on this? Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. I wouldn't go. I would refuse to go to any functions he's at. I would draw a line in the sand and then double down. Who cares what other people think? The fact of the matter is, my idea of family isn't screaming someone down. Family aren't people who hurt you physically or mentally. Family doesn't expect you to be uncomfortable or fearful for the sake of appearances. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Basically, the relationships we choose for ourselves and cultivate are more meaningful and important than the ones thrust upon you due to obligation. If family comes first, then obviously they don't consider you family. In that case, you have no obligation to go. Putting yourself through mental trauma so that sister-in-law can look back at her perfect day through rose-tinted spectacles seems irrational. Not the bonehead. You're not obligated to deal with someone who has attacked you like that. Inviting him to the wedding is just rug sweeping, and if you feel that you aren't able to deal with him, then don't go to the wedding. It'll hurt, but Nat brought this upon herself, not the bonehead. What do you think? Please comment below, and please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. See you in the next Reddit story.